Oh my gosh, the age-old question, how to better your communication in a relationship. I'm glad you asked because we're going to talk about that in this video. So, communication, something that humans do with other humans. Animals, yes, they can communicate, but we have this very unique thing called languages, and we can manifest with our voice, and we can cause conflicts with our voice, and all sorts of good stuff. So, how do we calibrate that to one another in a relationship? I'm just going to go ahead and generalize this for pretty much any relationship, but I really have in mind, let's say, interpersonal relationships outside of work. But you can use some of these techniques and concepts at work as well. First of all, because we're talking about humans, as I mentioned, we're going to have to talk about communication in the area of the mind, emotions and feelings, and in power struggles. This is uniquely human. So when we think about communication, we have to consider what's going on in those three areas. So first, I would recommend knowing yourself. Going into any relationship and any communication within a relationship, it's helpful to know where you're coming from. Do you know where you're coming from in that relationship? Do you know where you're coming from in that communication? What is the outcome that you're going for? So once you see yourself, then my second recommendation is to see them. What I mean by that is really understanding that person for who they are and what they're saying. It is one of my biggest pet peeves when I can tell that somebody isn't listening to what I'm saying. They're just thinking about something that somebody else said and relating it to what I'm saying. Or maybe it's something that I said a long time ago and they just are assuming that's what I mean right now, today, in this moment. But moment to moment, people change. And we have to be listening from a place that allows people to change. So listening to somebody from a place of constant evolution is a way to create better communication in any relationship, really. The other funny thing is that sometimes I notice people have a hard time communicating with one another if they remind you or you remind them of somebody they don't like. All that they can do is see that other person. They can't even see you, let alone hear you, and they're certainly not going to understand you. We have this funny way of blocking things out like that. And you imagine a world if we walked around really just looking at each other, seeing each other, listening to each other. I like to call this Aunt Janice. Let's say that you had an Aunt Janice that you really didn't like. She always told you to sit down and be quiet and would slap your hand out of that candy jar. Well, if you see somebody that reminds you of her, whether they sound like her, look like her, act like her, all you're gonna do is see and hear a hologram of Aunt Janice. Can you imagine a world if everybody was running around doing that, making split-second decisions about people they don't even know? Oh, wait, we are doing that. And funny enough, at the time of this taping, COVID-19 is going on. I see lots of people making split decisions about who people are based on what they're doing. It may sound like the world is ending and seem that way, but it's not. We're actually a lot better than that. And I'd like to flip it and teach a few techniques on how to better communicate. The first would be inside of the world of listening. So really listening to somebody when they're speaking. How do we do this? One of the favorite techniques I have, especially when I'm coaching a client, is listening for the emotion behind what they're saying. It's not always what they're saying, but it's the emotion behind it that they are communicating. A lot of times people don't want to say how they're feeling. I mean, really, can you imagine if everybody just walked around all the time and say, "Hello, how are you today? I'm super stressed," or "Hey, how are you? I'm so sad today." No, but they may walk in and say, "Oh, it's Monday again," and there's an emotion in there. Why is this person saying it like that? And you may even ask, what's wrong with Mondays? I like Mondays. And so really listening for the emotion is one way to better communicate in any relationship. The second one is listening for the nuggets of gold. So we have a tendency to just skip over mainly to what we want to say next in the conversation. And many times people will leave this breadcrumb, these little trails of nuggets along. And it's not really in what they're saying. It tends to always be the thing that just kind of shoots out of nowhere, and you're like, why are you saying that? They'll be talking about their weekend, and then all of a sudden talking about having to go to the DMV and this and that, but whatever, and then going back to this. Well, their brain is making a connection, and it's an important enough connection that they're actually mentioning it in this conversation. So if you want better communication in a relationship, I would invite you to consider stopping the conversation, not stepping over that nugget, finding out, why is this person talking about that? So maybe next time somebody throws in a random comment in your conversation, you stop and you ask them, wait, what was that about? Go back. Don't step over it. There's a nugget in there. Their brain made a connection, and it felt, even if it was unconscious, important enough to bring into the conversation. Having good communication in a relationship is hearing those things and stopping and saying, wait, why did that just come up in the conversation? I learned this trick from a brilliant mentor coach of mine. Yes, I did say mentor coach. She's both. And she taught me to use what questions. This is actually a technique that someone discovered while talking to their daughter. She was trying to figure out what was wrong with her daughter and why her daughter was crying. And she said, why would that scare you? Or how is this hurting you? Or how is this making you sad? And it wasn't until she said, what's making you so sad, that she got an answer. And don't we know, whatever works for kids can certainly work for adults. And so this is a technique that I use all the time, both with my kids and with my clients. What makes that a problem for you? Not what's wrong or what's the matter with you, but more like, I heard you just say X, Y, and Z. What makes that a problem for you? And when they answer, you can be listening for those little nuggets. Did they just say something random inside of that answer? Stop there and ask more what questions. Keep asking the what questions until you really get somewhere in the communication. You would be surprised where the conversation goes. Lastly, I can't talk about communication without talking about conflict. So in that case, I would recommend depersonalizing the situation and think about the emotional technique that I taught you, because somebody might be just emoting and it's not about you. So depersonalize it. Not every conversation that's difficult has to become a conflict. And lastly, in every conversation, seek solutions rather than explaining why something is a problem. Can you imagine if we just all stopped taking things personally and just heard everybody for what it is that they are communicating? Wow, that would be wonderful. And also, if we sought solutions instead of explaining our point of view and why something is a problem. I hope that some of these tips and techniques will help you have better communication in all of your relationships, because I want to live in a world like that, and I can imagine you do too. If you have a fire in your belly and you know that there's a better way to do things, then you're gonna love this. I have a free and fun diagnostic tool that will let you know if you are calibrated to your highest level of energy. If you've watched any of the other videos of mine on this channel, then you'll know I talk about the 7 centers of energy flow or leaks for both individuals and organizations. It's an easy tool that you can use over and over again. So visit the link below and get calibrating. It has been a privilege and so fun being on Michelle's channel. She is definitely the epitome of a great mentor and coach. I hope you get yourself one too.